increasingly are used for first audio and now video and who knows what in the future. And that will become the center of gravity of the actual utilization by volume and probably also by money and by companies who set the tone. Now, many people think that that's actually a bad thing to happen. They wring their hands, they're purists, they think that the internet that started out with kind of noble ideas, and there are and there were, is now becoming somewhat an internet that is dominated by Hollywood, blockbuster schlock, and by cat videos. And now, I disagree with that perspective, not only because it's a bit of a techno-elitist, but it's also really self-defeating. And the reason is that, not because I don't love cat videos and blockbusters, I do, but rather because it transforms the internet from one of a supply push to one of a demand pull, whereas in the olden days, you had to put something there and then people kind of tried it and saw it, and entrepreneurs came in and made use of it. And that was a good model. But it was a model in which you would have to do an awful lot of upfront investment, risky investment. And now the huge infrastructure costs, that kind of comes up in a different dimension. And the dimension, the dynamics are that there's a lot of demand around the world for entertainment, quality, internet connectivity, streaming of high quality, and that leads to a demand for an upgraded internet. And that leads to investment, and that leads to upgrades, and those will not be used only for the entertainment part, but also once you have that network with that gigabit, et cetera, capacity, it will also lead to other things, to e-health, to e-government, to e-education, and to all kinds of very nice and positive things that we wouldn't have quite as soon, quite as readily, quite as ubiquitous otherwise. So I think this is actually a positive direction, move to a demand pull based on popular demand. And that will be also something that we will see around the world, in Africa, for example. Instead of us thinking kind of how can we support, how can we finance, how can we develop, how can we aid upgrades of the internet in Africa and the spread of it, I think kind of the demand for entertainment, which seems to be limitless, is going to make these things pay for themselves. Because people do consume, including in the United States, a huge amount of media entertainment type stuff, time-wise, money-wise. It's just kind of an extraordinarily large sector and growing. Now, some of the things that I'd like kind of to talk to you about here briefly is to give you a bit of an introduction of some of the issues, why, kind of in context, why I think they're important. First, the technology. The internet, television started with a kind of a relatively simplistic analog over-the-air broadcasting. It lasted for a very long time. And then came the second generation of television, multi-channel, cable, satellite. And the third generation currently, which is digital and higher definition, first on satellites, then cable, then broadcast TV. And now we're in the midst, beginning in the fourth generation, which is online and video. And people know that, of course. But they still think about this as largely as, hey, we got another distribution method. So instead of satellite and cable, here's kind of, we can do this also over kind of in an IP type form. That indeed is the case, but it would be only the beginning, because much more exciting is what it unleashes. See, television, we all know about Moore's law, right? About 40% growth rate a year. And that is true for almost all parts of the ICT environment, right? Well, wrong, because it's not true for television. Television has moved along a very stately pace of development, which I kind of like to call the Sarnoff rate. And Sarnoff rate is, by my calculation, approximately 4% change a year, in contrast to Moore's law rate, which is about 40%. And so you see the discrepancy here. And what is truly extraordinary about the move of the of video onto the internet, in my view, is not that you can see it whenever you want to, that kind of on-demand stuff, but rather that it moves the whole video television environment into the technologically high growth, high change, high dynamism technology environment and entrepreneurial environment that characterizes the computer, the IT, and the internet sector. That will be the true revolution. And so as interesting as television has become recently in various series, content-wise, I think kind of the technological things that it will unleash are going to be really exciting, and so we should look forward to what would be possibly the most golden age of TV video, but also the most probably revolutionary and difficult one. And that includes kind of inclusions of various technologies and various activities such as vertical interactivity, such as user-generated content, such as virtual reality, such as multi-platforms, social networking, globalization, and it makes television into an immersive, personalized, globalized, individualized, interactive experience. Now, obviously, not all of television will be like that, but this will be the leading edge, the cutting edge, the one that sets the stage for changes in culture and politics and political communications. Now, who are the main players in that environment? Unfortunately, I don't have much time, so I'll just basically say I think they're not going to be kind of the CBSs of this world, but this is basically, and probably not even the New York, this is kind of going to be kind of a major media node. And this one, this is the inside. And here, these are these farms, server farms of clouds, because clouds, in my view, are going to be the central players here. Clouds that are the intermediaries in this diversity that is emerging. They will be holding things together, technology options. They will be the one that bridge them, standards and protocols. The convenience to the user who can not have to go to 25 different places, the law and the regulation which also have to be complied with different jurisdictions, different countries, the financial settlements and accounting, the marketing, the branding, the quality control, the privacy, the security, and the personalization. All these give advantages to those companies that we can call clouds. Now, who are these clouds? I'd like kind of to differentiate between three levels, 1, 2, 3. The first one are the providers of physical infrastructure, and they're basically companies like Amazon, which is a big player there, and just a second, Salesforce and Microsoft and IBM. Those are big players in the infrastructure provision. The level 2 are kind of virtual companies such as Dropbox or Box or WeTransfer, companies that basically use don't provide infrastructure but provide cloud services on a resale type basis. Level 3 are content cloud providers. Those are kind of like Amazon or Netflix and so on. And now the kind of what is characteristic here of this is that there is a very significant market concentration. In the level 1, Amazon has about, 40% or some kind of very high percentage. In the level 3, Netflix, as you can see, has a very high market share. And these things are not coincidental, as I will kind of show you in a moment if Jason lets me. Because you see, there is a market concentration, and this will be one of the themes in the afternoon too, the consolidation. Why? Well, on some level, of course, it's kind of empire building type people, but in a more benign way, they're fundamental economics working their way through. What we can see from our research at Columbia is that we do have a very significant economies of scale based on capital intensity. And as the media become more capital intense, and these clouds are enormously capital intense, you saw the inside, how it looks. As that happens, the economies of scale are such and the network effects that we should see only a relatively small number of companies in this sphere. And that then leads me to the kind of last point that I cannot cover really very much, and namely kind of what are some of the policy implications that will also be part of the discussion here. The policy implications are that in some ways people hopefully think, oh, right, broadcast TV, that was licensed and frequency limited, and therefore we didn't have a lot of it. But now we have the internet, right? Well, wrong again, because, friends, I have bad news. If we think that this kind of new television environment is going to be largely deregulated, maybe it should, but it won't. And the reasons are that lots of these media regulations are not there because of spectrum, but because of some societal expectations and norms and goals. They're not going to go away. So Jason and I kind of put together a little bit of a list of what these broadcasts, what these regulations are today, and broadcasting on cable, on satellites, and on telecom. And I don't have time now to show you, but kind of it's a long list, but they're not going to go away. They will just be imposed in a variety of ways onto the new medium. Take children, just because that's the slide here in front of me, but I could go on. I mean, there's no way that and the internet already has been subject to a whole variety of rules and regulations, and in other countries, what will happen to the kiddies, and so on. And these things will stay. And I could go on with you on the technology, on the ownership ceilings, on the chips, on the libels, on the enforcement of copyrights, and so on. So to conclude here, because Jason is dragging me off the platform, the conclusion, there will be some lower regulatory requirements in technology and in controversial content, but there will be more regulatory in privacy and security. There will be larger market power, as I explained. There will be globalism. There will be more consumer protection issues. There will be more libel issues and copyright issues. There will be new issues of attachments and interoperability among clouds. So therefore, my conclusion is, yes, they will be over-the-top media, but there will also be over-the-top regulation. And the old media is not going to go easily away. The old regulation is not going to fade away. I don't believe so. But there will be on top of it new regulations. I'm not sure if I'm really happy with that conclusion. And I'm sure that many of you are not happy with those conclusions either. But we should not engage in wishful thinking. We should address how we can get to a better way in the future. But it's not. These things are not going to go away. And we see examples in Europe, in Brussels, how the old regulations are being imposed on the new ones, how in Germany, how rights of reply and other rules for electioneering are being applied. And so to conclude, well, I've concluded the old regulations are going to go away, even in the structure of in the infrastructure and technology structure of cloud TV. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I invite my colleague in crime, Yves Gassot, who has arrived, to welcome us.
Good morning, everybody. I will not add over-the-top introduction to the bright comments of Professor Eli Noam. No, I will be very brief. I will come back this afternoon for one session, and I will present some analysis about our understanding of the situation. Let me introduce very rapidly who I am. I'm Yves Gassot, CEO of IDATE, DigiWorld Institute. It's a European think tank, and we are working very closely with the city and Eli Noam, particularly every year, to have this unique opportunity to cross the point of view, the analysis about the hot issues we can have from both sides of the Atlantic. and to offer this kind of transatlantic perspective to have a better understanding. It's for us not the question to see if the situation here is a role model or is a counter model, but it's the opportunity to rethink the business model and the model of regulation we can have in Europe in the telecommunication, but not only, of course, also in the global ecosystem that we can have in the new value chain dominated by the over-the-top players. And for this year, and particularly for the two sessions that we will propose this afternoon with some friends coming from Europe with me, we have chosen to talk about consolidation process. It's a common kind of merger frenzy that we have in US like in Europe, even if the contexts are very different and the drivers are not the same. So we will talk about the drivers and the formats of each type of mergers and acquisition operation we have presently from both sides of the Atlantic, and to understand also what may be their impact on the market structure and for the consumers. And the other hot issues is, of course, based on the dominant role of the big internet platform that we have, which are changing not only the media landscape, but again the global value chain that we can have for the digital, with complex relationship with the telcos, and it will be the second session which will be proposed for this transatlantic perspective. Thank you again, Eli and the city for welcoming our IDATE DG World Institute within your annual event. Have a good day.